So we'll see, but I'm very excited to move back.
That's fair.
Yeah, I can't. It's so dirty. It stinks. Now I'm like, okay, I'm reached my threshold. I'm like, I look at every corner and there's piles of trash.
Right. Shoot, let's go ahead and do it. All right. Welcome to another episode of the InnerChild Podcast, where we have authentic conversations about growth, childhood, and passion. I'm JB. That's my co-host OD.
Yo.
Today we have a very special guest. This young lady has definitely helped revive how the younger generation views and sees print media. Kelsey Russell.
Yes. Hi. I'm happy to be here.
Let's clap it up real quick.
Yeah, thank you.
Let's clap it up. Kelsey, thank you for joining us today. We know that you have a well-breasted experience, within media, social media, and obviously like how you articulate print media to everybody. So just tell the audience a little bit about yourself and your background.
Sure. So my name is Kelsey. I'm originally from Atlanta, Georgia. I moved to New York about 2.5 years ago to go to grad school here at Teachers College at Columbia. And while I was at Teachers College, I already had a social media following from lifestyle content, college content, humorous content. And one day I was just find myself like at dinner tables, on dates, everything. And I felt like I knew nothing about the world. Like I felt like I knew everything about what I was studying, sociology and education. And I love to talk. Like I'm an extrovert. I like to put my opinion in. And when things about war and politics came up, I didn't have anything to say. I ain't like that. So I asked my dad for my birthday, can I just get a New York Times subscription delivered to my door every day? Because that's what I used to do in the morning was read the paper. I share what I was learning with my audience, and it just took off to this whole other lane of media literacy, of why I prefer to read news in print. But outside of that, like I'm just a normal human being. I like to go out with my friends. I like to shop. I like to travel. So that's the social media side. But I'm also just, a young lady having fun and living life.
For sure. We dig that. I want to definitely, obviously, get into all of that. But you mentioned it, so, we got to open up the code segment. We got to open up the segment.
Sure.
We talked about this already. This is something that we just introduced into the show. You say you like to shop. I really want to know where you got these denim boots. You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
So, without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, number 2, drip check. We got Kelsey Russell in the building. Kelsey, tell us about the fit today and what you decided to put together, man. Let me know about this ensemble.
Okay, I love ensemble. I like that. My ensemble. Okay, I love clothes. I think it's my best thing to do is get dressed in the morning.
Right.
Everything is from Depop today. Literally, boots are from Depop, dresses from Depop. I have no idea who makes these shoes at all. And then the dress is DeSequel. Is that DeSequel? I don't know how to say that brand.
Yes.
I'm not sure.
Oh, I know what you're talking about.
It's like the one out of Barcelona.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I actually was reading today. It used to be like a brand that all the Spanish teachers wore and they would make fun of them.
A word?
And now it's making a revival. So
That's funny.
Yeah. And then jewelry, H&M.
Hey, okay.
H&M, a little,
H&M.
beauty supply.
Yeah.
And that's it. I just wear what feels good to me. So
That's for sure. I remember we was doing a little prep call. I know you was getting your nail done. Getting your glamour. You had braids like a few days ago. You already.
I did. Y'all caught me in the middle of like a maintenance week. I was like, okay, that was like the last day of me coming back from vacation with the braids. Had to get new nails, but I'm big on the nails too. So I just show my nail tech a picture and she like does inspo from the picture. So
For sure.
That's what's up. Yeah. Well, shout out to you in the fit. Like I said, the denim boots. You know what I'm saying?
Tough.
Thank you.
They make that in men's?
I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know. When I take them off, I'll look at the thing and I'll send you the brand. But probably not.
Little less heel. You know what I'm saying? Little less heel, but I could dig it. You feel me? But I mean, let's definitely get into it. You spoke about it earlier. You're from Atlanta, Georgia.
Yeah.
InnerChild Podcast. So we always start off with childhood. You know, tell us about that experience, right? Growing up in Atlanta. You went to Westminster High School. Did I say it correctly?
I did. Yeah, I went to Westminster.
All right, so leading up all the way up into high school, like just paint a picture for us. What was that experience like growing up at home, mom and dad, what the family influence looked like?
Well, I love Atlanta. Like,
Right.
Atlanta is very dear to my heart. I think it's the best city in the United States of America. But besides that, I grew up in a really unique position in Atlanta. So I'm the youngest of 4 siblings. I have 2 older sisters, 1 older brother. I don't wish being anything but the youngest sibling on anybody. I feel bad for anybody who's not the baby. It's the best.
So you get spoiled.
Yeah, you get very spoiled. And you get to see a bunch of older siblings. I got to see what they do, how they did live their lives, pick and choose what I like, what I don't, and live my life. But my grandpa actually created one of the largest minority-owned businesses in the country and the largest owned minority real estate business in the country, H.J. Russell and Company. So his story really influenced my experience in Atlanta. So he worked for his dad's plastering company up until he was about 16, and then he bought his first duplex for $125. And the story's really funny because, right. Literally, $125. He ended up buying the property and started building by hand the duplex on the wrong property because they were side by side. But the people who own the property, like, it's all good, all good. Mind you, this is a 16-year-old man in like the 1940s, black man with a speech impediment too. So everybody was like, you ain't going nowhere. He ended up, the money he made from the duplex went to Tuskegee. After he came back from Tuskegee, he took the plastering company and made it a construction, real estate, property management company. And he's credited for really building so much of the city of Atlanta. And he also took a very silent but impactful role in the civil rights movement.
Yeah.
So he wasn't somebody that was upfront speaking, but his big thing was paying people's bail in Atlanta because he had access to money. But also his house served as a meeting spot for MLK, Jesse Jackson, Ralph David Abernathy.
Wow.
So growing up in this family that had such an impact in Atlanta and still being a part of a family business, like, heavily impacted my childhood.
Right.
But at the same time, while my grandpa was this like Atlanta mogul, like, that's just my grandpa. I'm like the youngest out of all my cousins. So I would say I got the least amount of time with him, but also the least business side of him because he was just hanging out with his granddaughter. So that really impacted the way I saw Atlanta, because not only is it this Black cultural hub, but it was also this place where my family had such an impact in that.
Yeah, a lot of roots.
Yeah, lots of roots, which is why I think I love the city even more. And then my mom's side is all educators. Like, grandpa met her mom. He was a principal. She was a school counselor. So I would say I grew up in a household that's like education and you better make money. And also entrepreneurship being a norm in my family. I feel like that's not that normal for Black families, but the expectation is if you have a skill or you have a talent, you make a business out of it and you find a way to make money with it. Like, you can work for whoever, but you also better make sure you're working for yourself. So that was a household. But then also, I mean, all my siblings are 8, 10, 12 years older than me. So that was a really interesting dynamic. I feel like sometimes I tell people I got the experience of being the youngest child, but also an only child, because by the time I was like in 4th grade, all my siblings were gone. So that was like what my childhood looked like. Yeah, well, I guess parts of it. Yeah.
Any pressures you feel like ever existed with just like such a rich culture that existed within your family? Like, you ever felt any kind of pressure to, I don't know, like, create an avenue for yourself that like continued the lineage of what your grandfather was doing?
Not so much pressure, but I think that's because my parents really did a good job of not making that exist.
Right.
Like, when my grandpa created that business, his kids had no choice but to go into the business. Like, that's what they were doing. They were like, this, you're carrying on this legacy. And all of them get to do things that, I guess, highlight their passions, right? My dad is really big on entrepreneurship and being in the community. So he's really involved in our entrepreneurship center. My aunt is in charge of our beverage center, our beverage business, food and beverage. And my uncle is actually like the CEO of the company. So all of them are in their own lane. But my dad is also was always very honest with me. Like, I really didn't have options and I never want that for you. So he and my mom really instilled in me, find what you love, do what you love, and just become the best at it. And if you ever want to work for this company, you better go work somewhere else. They were very adamant about that, of you need to create your own lane. So not so much pressure, but the older I get, the more I run into people who have a lot of stories about my grandpa. And then it's like, oh my gosh, this man made an impact throughout the whole entire world. So then it makes me think, how can I make an impact too that's that lasting? So not pressure, but maybe a little pressure, but not too much. Yeah.
You mentioned that, your siblings are 8 to 12 years older than you, right? And so it felt like you were the only child. So how was that dynamic in the household where it was just you, your father, your mother? Like, did you get very close and create a nice, strong bond with them? How was that like, once your siblings moved out?
It was, I definitely think we're very close. And also my siblings have a different mom than me.
Okay.
So it's interesting because we both have a different set of parents, which heavily influences how we interact with like our parents. It just took me until this year to realize like my mom is not their mom, and not in a they don't like her type of way, but that's not their biological mom. So it's even interesting when we're in conversation, I'll say mom and they'll say Steph, her name. So a while, that used to really hurt me when I was little. Like their relationship with my mom, like why don't you love my mommy the way that why don't you love my mom the way I love her?
Right.
But the reality is that's not their mom. That's their stepmom. And that plays a whole different role in your life. So I got super close to my parents. And I also got my parents at a really different time because when my siblings were growing up, my dad was working. Like he was working really, really hard, pretty much at work all day, all night. But for me, I mean, he was in his mid 50s to early 60s now. So he had a lot more time. His schedule was more free. So I also got this different side of my dad that my siblings I talk about. That's a lot more emotional, a lot more soft, a lot more open and honest about getting older, about, what he wants that last chapter of his life to look like. And then I'm my mom's only kid. So that's a different dynamic too I'm her only kid.
Right.
So I definitely got close to them in a different way, but my siblings are also closer to my parents in different ways as well. So it was interesting.
And then how about the dynamic between you and your siblings? Like obviously, you're going through middle and high school and they've already experienced that, and you're going to college, right? And they've already may have experienced that. So how is that? Like, are you going to them seeking out advice? Are you going to them, how do I handle this situation? What do I do in this scenario? Like how is that dynamic like?
Yeah, now I am.
Okay.
When I was younger, when I was little, I was like their little sister. It was real cute. This is like my 8-9-year-old little sister. But I was a snitch. So that was also my problem. That's where the relationship kind of started to deteriorate. Oops, sorry. Sorry, microphone. Sorry. That's where the relationship started to deteriorate because they're over here 16, 17, 18, bringing boys in the house and stuff, keeping me. I was like, how you gonna babysit me and then bring a boy up in here? Like, I need all the attention. So I would go snitch. I would go do stuff like that. No, it's crazy. And now looking back, I was doing the same exact thing, but nobody snitched on me.
Right.
So there was kind of, I think, a gap from probably the time I was about, I would say like 15 to 19, 20, where I wasn't really talking to them as much because I didn't think of going to them for advice. I was like, I'm on my own. How are you guys going to understand what I'm going through? It wasn't until I was about 21. And I think we also were able to hang out in growner settings. Like we could go drink, we could go to the club, we could do those things that we became all a lot closer. And now I go to them for advice. And I mean, all my siblings are pretty much, 2 of them are married, 1 of them is engaged, 2 of them have my sister has 4 kids, all girls. Oh. My other sister has a son and is pregnant again, expecting. So now I'm really able to talk to them because I see parts of their life that I'm like, oh, they're parts of this that I want the next chapter in my life to look like. Right. So it was cute. Then it was snitching. We weren't cool. And now we're all cool again. And I've apologized for being a snitch too. I've apologized.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's what you kind of just mentioned is one of the things that we, I say, heavily focus on this show is growth, right? I think that's part of life is having an evolution over time, and you grow. As you grow, you start to, kind of hone in on different things that maybe when you were younger, or I guess in your own ways or your own element, you start to evolve, right? And I think that's the beauty of growth, and I think that was a key example of growth over time.
Yeah. That's real. Thank you.
Yeah, for sure. So, you said education was a really big thing, right, in your family. And speaking of education, obviously, you hit the books hard. You didn't play no games about it. And you were a Gates Millennium Scholar, right?
I was a Posse Scholar.
A
Posse Scholar.
Posse Scholar. All right, so
Yeah.
tell us about that experience, and obviously, that leading you to like your collegiate experience as well.
Sure. So I wanted to either go to University of Miami or University of Southern California. Like I was set. I was going to be warm. I was going to be in a swimsuit for all of my college career.
Either
I think-
Cali or
yeah.
Miami. Yes.
Yeah. God knew I had no business being in those cities. From 18 to 22, I had no business. So that's why I was dead set on going to college. I had 2 other people in kind of just like my family circle, family friends that were Posse Scholars. And I remember, I think I was on a trip, actually, I was in New York with my mom, and she was saying to me, you should just look at this Posse Scholarship. And when your mom says something, y'all, I don't know if this ever happens, y'all. You spend too much time with your parents, and it doesn't really matter what they say.
It doesn't go through.
It's irritating.
It doesn't go through.
It don't go through,
Like,
bro.
Right.
It doesn't go through.
It's not even like in one ear out the other. Like it just, it just stops right here. Like
Right.
you don't hear it.
Like park car, like girl, whatever.
But
And
when somebody
also,
else tells you.
right, exactly. And I'm like, I don't want to be like them. I want to be like myself. Anyway, I end up applying for the scholarship
Right.
because I'm like, why not? I mean, who knows if I'm going to get it? So the scholarship is 3 rounds of interviews. The first round is this big interview. I think it's 100. It's about 100 people in a room, and you have a number on your back, and they put you in. Yeah, it's called dynamic assessment process. So you have 100 people in a room. They put a number on your back, and they put you in groups of 10, and you have to problem solve with the group. Like one example is there's a set of Legos like that would be on the table, and one person can go up to the Lego set. It's built a certain way. They have to report back to the group what it looks like, and you try to rebuild it, and then the next person goes. So it's all of these tests like that, and then you write some essay at the end. So I made it through that one. Then you go for a formal interview, kind of a more normal interview. And then the third one is similar to the first interview, but with a smaller group. And I remember getting the scholarship, and I did not want to go to Boston University. That's where I ended up going. And I was just being a brat. I didn't want to go there. I didn't want to be in a colder city. At first, I loved the school. And then when I saw where my other friends were going to school, like the UNC Chapel Hills, HBCUs, I was like, I don't know if I made the right decision.
Yeah.
But when school is free, you did make the right decision.
Like 100%.
Yeah. That,
No question.
look, that's such a flex. Like,
Yeah.
I did not have to pay for college.
Yeah.
But I mean, Posse was one of the biggest growth periods in my life. That group of 10 people heavily has impacted who I am today. I mean, I did not understand what mental health was. I didn't understand what mental health crises looked like. I thought I had empathy for people. I did not have empathy for people. I really learned how to have that, especially for people you might not like. How to extend that, problem solve. I mean, it was such a good program to be in. And also, I mean, I've met some of my closest and best friends in it. So that Posse was, once you get the scholarship, you have to meet once a week from December all the way up until the time you go to college.
Right.
So you're meeting with your Posse, you're having meetings with them. And yeah, our Posse was interesting.
I think a lot of people who don't get the opportunity to like experience being a part of like a scholarship group or like some kind of fund that's like set up to support the student body. I don't think people realize like how impactful that like experience is. Like I was a part of I was a part of a scholarship group called Take Stock in Children. And it was similar. Like we met every week and, sitting in these classrooms and having different professors come in and speak to us and hearing different stories about how to kind of just navigate the world as like a young adult was really, really important. And I feel like not too many people get that opportunity, right? Because, I mean, it's a lot of scholarships out there, but not too many of them are like providing programs on a weekly basis, monthly basis.
Exactly.
Like I remember going through, summer programs where I met one of my best friends who like, I'm still like, that's my partner to this day. Like shout out to BG. But yeah, like these programs, like they do something to the inner child.
Oh, they do something. There's also, I think it's really important when you're younger to be in situations of groups of people you don't really know and you
100%.
all don't end up as friends, but learning those social skills. Like, I think that's why all of these groups exist. Like, I was in Jack and Jill. I'm like, that's exactly why Jack and Jill is its own.
Yeah,
Jack and Jill.
What's Jack and Jill? I don't. What is that?
Okay, so Jack and Jill is an organization, and the organization is held by the mother, and it was created in. Actually, maybe I should know what it was. I think it was 1950s or 60s.
I think it was the 60s.
60s.
Yeah.
Okay.
And as Black people gather more wealth, they had this idea of we want our kids in like these middle upper class communities to meet.
Right.
And hang out. So we have monthly meetings. The mom is basically the member of the organization. They meet, they plan meetings. But we don't just, all of the activities are supposed to be educational. Were you in Jack and Jill?
I wasn't.
Yeah. They're supposed to be educational. We go on like college tours. But ultimately you do end up with a network of a lot of Black people. Like I pretty much can't go anywhere and not know somebody through Jack and Jill. So, but it definitely has a connotation of like bougie kids getting together.
Yeah.
Bougie Black kids getting together every month. Which, give or take. There's jokes every truth, or truth every joke, whatever.
I feel that. But obviously that experience led you to be you.
Yeah.
Right. We talked about this, right? One of our last guests that we had on the show,
Adia.
Yeah, Adia.
Yeah.
Shout out AT.
Yeah, she was on the show, and y'all went to Boston University together, right?
And she was a Posse Scholar too.
Oh, she was. I didn't know that.
Yeah.
That's what's up.
She's a Posse Scholar. So the way Posse works is like I'm BU Posse 11, so we're the 11th Posse to go. I think she was maybe the 9th Posse, or so it's like Posse 8, Posse. I think she was Posse 8. I think she was.
Yeah.
But yeah, BU. I watched her episode. I love what she said about BU. Like, I have a love-hate relationship with that place.
Word.
There's nothing like adversity. Like, there's nothing like being in a city, in a place that you naturally don't like, but you have to find ways to like it. So I say Boston, not even BU, Boston just made me really realize you got to find things that you love. Like, if you don't like something, but you're there, you have to find the things that make you happy. So, like, for me, that's moving my body, that's shopping, that's being around Black people. So I need to make sure I'm finding those things. Let me go out to these random malls in Massachusetts. Let me go to these outlets. Let me find restaurants in Black areas. When I got my car up there, it definitely changed my experience in Boston, though, because I was actually able to see the city. But yeah, Boston's weird. I tell people what Atlanta is for Black people is what Boston is for white people.
Yeah.
What was some of that adversity that you faced coming from Atlanta as a freshman to BU? What were some of the things that you maybe struggled with or had a hard time like kind of transitioning into that environment?
I think the first thing was Black people. Like, I was used to seeing Black people everywhere. And in Atlanta, you don't just see Black people. You see Black single people, you see Black couples, you see Black families, you see Black elderly people, from the wing place at the gas, station to the nicest restaurant in Atlanta.
Yeah. So
it was very odd to me to go to places and not see Black people. I ain't like that. They also don't have happy hour. I don't like that. But besides that, that's adversity. That's real adversity, is no happy hour.
Happy hour.
Right, but I guess at 18, I should have been concerned about that. So I was concerned. That was adversity when I turned 21. Yeah. But the other thing that I think really, and I kind of remember Adia talking about this, like, I didn't know I was Black American until I went there. And it was the first time people would ask me, where are you from? I was like, Atlanta?
Yeah.
Where are you from? Atlanta? Like, that's where all my family is from. So for the first time, I realized it wasn't just Black culture that I was seeking. It was Black American culture that was a comfort zone for me. But obviously, that's not really here. So you need to find other ways to get to know other cultures and embrace other cultures and ask questions from a sense of curiosity. So that was a sense of adversity, was one, realizing what my actual identity is, and that community is a lot smaller up there. Another thing is weather. Like, weather plays a big impact in your emotions and mood, and I didn't realize that until I was living in a city that gets like -4 degrees. And the mental health, the seasonal depression, I didn't really understand that until it happened, and I was like weeks into second semester. I was like, I'm not eating, I'm not sleeping, I'm not going out with my friends. I was getting sick. So it really taught me how much weather has an impact on you, but also how much you have a control over your mental health. Like, if you know things are coming, how can you prepare for those things that might make you feel down? So those were definitely some parts of adversity, for sure.
For sure.
Yeah.
I like the fact that you said that whole weather piece, because that is something that's like missed a lot, right? It just always seems so harder to push through
Yeah, when it's
When
cold.
it's cold.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. And then we're black. Like we're meant to be in the sun.
Yeah.
You know, you can't tell me that when you're like, you said you're in DR, you're from Miami. You can't tell me that when you're in those environments, you don't feel happier. Your body is literally glowing, things like that.
100%.
So weather is huge. And then also another thing is, I mean, I grew up getting my hair done every week, my nails done every week. Like that was something that I was almost raised to do. And in Boston, that stuff was so hard to find. And I think for people who might not be into that, it doesn't seem like a big deal. But like my hair's looking busted, my nails don't look good. That doesn't make me feel good. Like I like having that stuff done.
No glam.
Yeah, no glam. Like, it is a silly adversity, but if that is something you value, is putting yourself together. I wasn't feeling like myself so much. So that was a small piece of adversity, but it was big to me.
For sure. How was your experience at BU? You pledged at BU, right?
Oh yeah.
How was your experience? Becoming a member of AKA?
Yes.
on campus?
Listen, that's probably the reason I actually started liking Boston.
Okay.
And I was like, where are the black people? Where are the black Americans? I was like, oh, okay, everybody's Greek. So that completely changed my experience in Boston because I'm a part of a citywide chapter too.
Okay.
So all my line sisters go to completely different schools. So as soon as, we were pledging, and we were also just after we crossed, I mean, I got to see the culture of other schools. Like
That's cool.
one of my she goes to Boston College, like the other one goes to Suffolk. So suddenly my world started to open of what do these other schools look like. And not only do I just go on their campus, I'm hanging out with somebody who's ingrained in the community because that's what women of Alpha Kappa Alpha do. They're in their communities. And that opened my eyes and made me feel a lot better about Boston because I was able to see things that made me comfortable. I grew up in the South. We're a big football culture. I was able to start going to football games at Boston College. I mean, even one of my line sisters goes to Brandeis. That's a really artsy, a little out there culture. It was nice to see that. So it really made me start to fall in love with Boston in a way I didn't expect to. And then also the history of Black people in Boston is incredible. That is much overlooked. So that made me enjoy Boston a lot more.
And are you guys like a tight-knit line? Like how is the dynamics between, you and your other line sisters?
Yeah, we're tight-knit. Actually, my line sister lives like 2 blocks away from me.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. No, it's really nice. And she's from Harlem. So when I was moving here, she's like, okay, don't live here, live here. So we're all super tight-knit. It's been really amazing seeing all of the cool things we're doing. One of my line sisters got married this year.
Oh, wow.
We were all in her wedding.
Yeah, it's about that time. Boy.
Yeah, right. One of my other line sisters is probably going to get married in about 2 years. She's that line sister. She's like in a relationship. It's like, we're doing this.
Yeah.
Like she already knows she's going to get proposed to. She already knows when they're going to get married. So she'll probably get married like in the next year or two. But yeah, we're all close. And I think it's just one of the best experiences to have sisters,
100%.
Especially having sisters and knowing what that relationship looks like. It made me improve my relationship with my sisters.
Yeah,
and especially because I wasn't talking to my sisters that much when I was pledging and before, but afterwards it made me want to strengthen that relationship with them. So
I think there's just a certain level of like a power dynamic in relationship building with, if you pledge fraternity sorority. So obviously, me and OD are line brothers. And over time, we weren't the closest when we first crossed at all. Yeah. But I'll say this, like for me, we took a line trip to LA like during COVID, and I think like we shared like the same room. I don't know if you remember that, me, you, Dre, and Steph, right? And I don't know, it was just something about like being in the same room as him, like just hearing him talk and like really just getting to know him more, and it just sparked the immediate like I'm rocking with this dude. And maybe 4 or 5 months ago, that probably wasn't the case. And just over time, like I really just, especially now that we're almost 5 years since we crossed, it's just a certain level of, appreciation for the continued growth and partnership, not only that I had with him, but our other line brothers as well. And it's kind of like iron sharpens iron. So similar to you mentioned, all your line sisters are doing great things. People are getting married, that next chapter in their lives. Same thing with us. It's amazing to see, guys moving to new cities, moving in with their significant others and, starting their own businesses and just seeing that. It's a beauty. So I think that dynamic and structure of the bond that, fraternity and sorority creates, it's not just for those 4 years, right? It's literally a lifetime.
Oh, it's a lifetime. I think you said something that's the coolest thing is after you cross, the way you get closer to people that you didn't expect, right?
Yeah.
And
for sure.
how many people are on y'all's line?
34?
34.
Yeah.
And I think it's interesting because it's 7 of us. What's interesting is I think you go through phases with your line brother. I know this is what I've experienced. Phases with line brothers and line sisters. Like I've had periods of life where I'm super close to one, talking every day. And it's not like we're not close anymore, but we just not talking as much anymore. But this other relationship with another line sister is growing in a way I didn't expect. And it kind of reminds me of what you were saying about InnerChild on the podcast, because I think you meet, if you pledge in college, you meet them at a really interesting time, right?
Yes.
Like you're 19, 20. I mean, you can be anywhere, 18, 19, 20. And you're in this space where you think you have everything figured out and you absolutely don't. And you see people at like their most vulnerable moments.
Right.
So even as we all grow and we get married and we get jobs and we get rejected from things, it's like this almost sense of protection you have over them because you've seen them in this space. Like, first of all, I don't know why you don't believe in yourself. I don't know why you're thinking about yourself like that, because I've seen you do incredible things in some of the most treacherous situations.
Yeah.
So it's definitely some of my favorite relationships to have. And yeah, I just love all of them for all different reasons too. That's the cool thing about it.
Yeah, I gotta love the bond. And thanks, JB, for that compliment. You're a pretty cool guy.
Thanks, bro. So how was it going from, you talked about your experience at BU, and obviously like you found your way, you found yourself, then those 4 years in, and then you transitioned here to New York and Columbia. How was it, going to Teachers College here and you first get into the city? What were the adjustments like? And what did you, the values and the things that you brought over from BU, and how did that translate here in the city?
That's a good question. So I was really deciding between USC and Columbia. Like I was going to USC. I was like, I'm getting to LA in some way, shape, or form. Because I didn't know what I wanted to do after I graduate. I have a bachelor's in sociology. I was like, what the hell am I supposed to do with this? I knew I wanted to, like, I had an idea of what I wanted to do, and I still would like to be a college president. That's what I wanted to do when I graduated.
That's an amazing goal.
Like,
You're going to be a college president.
I'm going to be a college president. I really want to be an interim college president, though.
Okay.
I don't want, I want the search committee to put me in charge when they're looking for somebody. I don't want that full job.
That's very
interim college president, but you can't put that on the app. You can't be like, I want to be an interim college president. But I knew I love education. Like, that is, to me, InnerChild is literally what feeds your soul, and learning feeds my soul. Like, I am a nerd at heart. Anywhere I go, I need to touch, I need to smell, I need to understand what is going on, and always approach things from curiosity. But still, I didn't know what I wanted to do. So I was like, I'm just going to go to grad school and get another master's. And I had gotten a full tuition scholarship to Teachers College as well through Posse, because they have a fellowship program where they have relationships with graduate schools, and you have to apply to the school, get in, and then you have to apply for the Posse scholarship or fellowship. So I got the fellowship, and I was deciding, I had a good scholarship to USC too. And I had somebody tell me, you need to go where it's going to challenge you the most. And I just thought about sitting on a subway, which is still the most challenging thing to me ever. I don't like it. So you know what? I think I'm going to go to New York. Like, I ended up visiting here, looking at Columbia. I was like, I'm not going to go. But then when somebody told me that, I was like, you know what? Yeah, if New York's going to be a little harder, I might as well try it. And I think my extroverted side really is what I brought from BU, from Boston to New York, and learning how to tweak that skill. I think looking back on my childhood, I've always pretty much been an extrovert, but I've never given in.
Yeah.
I don't know, because being an introvert seems cooler. It seems cooler to sometimes to be almost like more cautious with your social interactions. And sometimes I think introverts do a better job of cherishing those more, and like quality over quantity. But all of this to say, I kind of want to take it back to when I was growing up, because I always went to private, predominantly white schools. So I always was comfortable saying uncomfortable things in rooms. I realized I remember some teachers will call me militant and things like that. And now I'm able to look back and realize how I was just speaking my mind, doing the same exact things as other people. But what does that do to like a younger Black girl when you call her militant for just saying her views?
Yeah.
But I think it made me want to do it more. Like, I'm going to say my views, all this stuff. I also was always just in different social organizations, whether it was Jack and Jill. I think I told you all. I met your all's friend Malik at Woodward. But before that, I went to Westminster. I went to Woodward, and then I went back to Westminster. That's a story. I basically was just having too much fun. And my mom was like, you need to go back to this other school. Like, no. And I went to Woodward because I want to be around more Black people. I've learned I do best in PWIs. Like, it doesn't hurt me to be the only Black person in the room. It makes me focus more. But I kind of realized looking back as I've moved to New York, I've always had a skill of being able to connect people, right? Like even when I went to Westminster, I would go to parties there, but I would bring people from Woodward and I would meet other people and bring them to these things. So I've always been able to connect people and bring them into different spaces. And I find joy in seeing people that I've connect with other people, and then moving myself out of the equation. And in Boston, I had to make that flourish because it wasn't people I was used to. They thought different than me. The way I grew up was very different from people. So I was kind of forced to join a lot of organizations and find my way, make friends through there, bring my other friends to those organizations, then jump to something else. And in New York, that's how the social scene works here, is like, I became more comfortable showing up to things alone. I became more comfortable not knowing anybody, reaching out to somebody, even if it might feel awkward. And I think I built those skills throughout time, but especially in Boston where I just I wasn't that comfortable. So being uncomfortable, I was like, well, I might as well just try everything. I might as well say what I want to say because what's the worst thing that can happen? I don't know if this is making sense now that I'm saying this, but.
No, you're making sense.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, but now that I've been to New York, those social skills have helped me network. And then also being at teachers college, I mean, going through like private schools my whole life, the education system is like a reiteration of itself every single time. The work that they want to see, the writing they want to see, what type of student they want to see is copy paste. So I feel like I understood that from a young age and was able to like, it kind of felt like cruise through. Yeah. So I think Boston University was just an iteration of like what my schooling looked like from K through 12.
For sure.
So yeah.
But you know, I like that piece that you said when you spoke about just like how Boston University and you already being an extrovert, like, you know, kind of gave you an opportunity to come here and be in New York and be okay with like going to places alone and networking by yourself. I think that's so big here because it doesn't matter how many friends you have over here. It doesn't matter like if you have family over here, like everybody gets busy, right? Like I haven't seen JB in a few weeks and JB's my dog. Like JB's probably one of the 2 or 3 people I hang out with in New York. And you know, it gets to a point where like, yeah, like you have to open up and then you have to start moving around on your own and you have to start figuring things out. Because I mean, let's be honest, you're an adult, right? And there will be periods of loneliness and you do have to figure out like how to like bask those emotions, how to actually like deal with that reality and actually put yourself out there to still grow. Yeah. You know, so I really like that piece. Now, you're creative, right? You're creative. You already spoke about being an extrovert. Do you think you being an extrovert opened up that creativity box for you?
That's a really good question. I have no clue if that's what it did. I mean, you're kind of making me think back, like, why do I like creating and where does that come from? I mean, I don't know if me being an extrovert has anything to do with that. I don't know. That's a really good question.
I would say outside looking in, I think so because it oozes out of you. I don't know, like just having conversations beforehand, having conversation now and in the moment, and then seeing, you know, your platforms. I feel like that extrovert side just oozes out of you, and I think that helps pour into you. I don't know.
That's a good point. No, I interrupted you. What were you gonna say?
No, and I was about to piggyback off of that because I remember like, you know, watching one of your videos. It was just on Instagram and it was around like the voting period time.
Yes, yeah.
And then you were like, "All right, y'all, I'm getting ready. Come get ready to vote with me." Yeah. So, and I was just like, all right, man, this is so dope. And then like hearing you talk about being an extrovert, and I'm like, yeah, like it's literally on camera. Like you act like that for real.
I did show it. And like that is literally my personality. So now that you gotta say it like that, I do think I think being an extrovert, let me back up. I just love talking to people. I think it's so interesting what people have to say. Like that really came out your mouth. And as an extrovert, you have a skill of making people feel comfortable. Like that's just a skill that I've had, is that when I meet people, I want to know about you. I want to make you feel comfortable. I want you to share. And I think with my content, it drives that, because I believe in educational content that is approachable, and people like learning from their peers. They like learning about people. They like learning from people that talk like them, that walk like them, that they want to have a conversation with. I mean, think about your favorite teacher. They weren't just your favorite teacher because they taught well. You all were probably having conversations on the side or those office hours or before class where they were making you feel more like a human than a student. So I do think I bring that to my content and my creative side, is I want people to feel comfortable engaging with my content, no matter how educational, no matter how maybe high level it is. So I definitely do think it brings out creativity. And I also don't think I'm afraid to like sometimes try creative things, because, can I curse on here?
Yeah.
Oh, like who gives a fuck? Like, you know, like who? I mean, when you're used to putting yourself out there, people are not going to like you.
Yep.
That is going to happen, and that's a good thing to know, is people are not going to like you.
Right.
And some people will like you, but as a person, your job is to realize, do you like them? And if they like you, like, let's be friends. Let's like talk more, all these things. So I think being an extrovert has made me realize, like, yeah, not everybody likes you. That's
I
okay.
like that.
Yeah, because I don't like everybody. So, yeah.
I don't like a lot of people.
Right.
You know?
Exactly.
Positivity. We'll
Right.
spread positivity on camera. But no, you labeled the print princess.
Yes.
Right. And I think that's so dope, because let's keep it a stack. Like I don't read the newspaper as much as I should.
I brought you
You
one.
know, you brought.
You did,
Yeah.
You brought-
Lay it on me. You
Yeah.
know, educate me. That's what we hear. Each one teach one. Right.
Yeah.
But no, like I remember being a little kid and, you know, buying newspapers, you know, off the side of the Publix, or, you know, off the side of the supermarket
Man, tell me.
for current
What I do
event
for a
homework.
chicken tender sub.
Yeah.
What I do for a chicken tender sub.
Oh,
With
yeah.
the
No,
buffalo
bruh.
sauce.
Oh
Not to
my
pivot, bro. I'm
God.
sorry, bro.
yeah,
No,
I'm
you
like,
good, you
that's
good, bro. Like,
childhood. What?
That's inner child right
Yeah.
there.
What?
On sale.
JB got a
Publix,
book.
bruh.
Bro,
Come on,
that's
man.
fried chicken.
Man.
Sorry, anyway, but
Yeah.
go ahead.
Nah, you
Please.
good. Because Publix is really that one for real.
No, something else.
But no, like with that whole thing, right? My experience is, at least, like, you know, having to, you know, get into newspaper reading because I had to do current event homework.
Yep.
And it's just interesting, right? In the world right now, where not too many people are like reading print. It's always online now. It's always like, you know, real fast information you can find on social media.
Totally.
Like, how are you able to be like, damn, I need to educate people on this? And then, like, how was you able to like take that strategy, right? And then use that to garner so much success on social media?
Yeah, so I think I talked about how I felt like I didn't know anything, but there was also some like other mental health things going on in my life at the time. So this was about like this was the summer of 2023. And I literally missed a Renaissance concert because of this. The worst day of my life.
Wow.
But yeah, it's sickening. I actually lie to people and say I went because that's how mad it makes me. I'm like, yeah, I went to the concert. I had like second row tickets, anything, whatever. So I have been traveling a lot, and I had literally come back from Bali with my sisters, like one of the most peaceful experiences ever. And I was doing so much, and like everything was just, it was a time I was heading into my second year at Columbia. So I was trying to figure out, what am I going to do after? I was applying to Fulbright scholarships, knowing I didn't want to go, but still applying to stuff I didn't want to do. And all of this anxiety had like been building in me. And I had an awful anxiety attack one day, like could not breathe. Like I was home alone too. Nobody was there. I was just like, I didn't know what an anxiety attack was, but now I do. Now, especially an extreme one. And I remember after that, I had been in therapy, but I don't know if you all have been in therapy. I think you can go to therapy, and I think then you can like do therapy. Like you can just sit there in sessions and talk and not do the work.
Yeah.
Or you can show up and take notes, do the work, actually realize there's some stuff that what do you want to improve, and doing the work to do that. So I have been in therapy, but I don't really feel like I was going to therapy. And I kind of told my therapist about this. I didn't know what was an anxiety attack. She was like, yeah, that's exactly what an anxiety attack looks like. And she really suggested to me, she's like, you need to tap back in with little Kelsey. Like, she's like, I want you to close your eyes, think about little Kelsey and where do you see her? What made her happy? And I thought about being in my school library and we had this like teddy bear where you could read. And I would not be interested in reading the books, like the fiction or nonfiction. I love to read the almanac. Like, y'all know that book where, oh my gosh, I was fascinated by the almanac. Like, how many pregnant women, bro, what? Like, literally, how many pregnant women are in Ohio? Like, how many potatoes grew in Kansas? What's the normal weather in May in Nebraska? That's the kind of stuff that fascinated me. So I was like, oh, I should go back to like, I thought about buying almanacs. I was like, okay, I don't think I need to go buy a bunch of almanacs and read them. But I also thought about how I would start my morning every day reading the newspaper. My parents would take me to school when I was in elementary school. I would read the living section of the Atlanta Journal-Constitution and the comic section every morning. And I was like, that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to do what little Kelsey liked to do. She just likes information. So let me find a way to not only get information every morning, but do it in the same form, in the same physical form that I did when I was younger, which meant I needed print. I needed something to hold. I was like, I should get a newspaper. That only makes sense. So that is what started it, was also me trying to heal my own mental health and anxiety. And it was through curiosity, and that's what feeds my soul. And then to do it on camera, I mean, I kind of always, like, even I had a Finsta and I'd be causing drama on there. Like, I always...
You be shaking up the pot. You be stirring the pot.
Yeah, I was always
shaking
like...
tables.
Literally, I always like putting my camera down and saying my piece of mine. Like, that was just something that I was always comfortable with. So to me, when I read the paper, I genuinely had a reaction like, did y'all know where they were dropping these bombs here? Like, I didn't know this shit. Like, I didn't know. So I was so excited. I was like, oh my God, I got to tell my audience. And it just took off. So for me, it was just pure joy. And like, guys... I have never enjoyed reading news, no matter how bad or good it is, through print, because I realized when I would read news on my phone, it would be like sandwiched in between stuff. Like, okay, cool. Scrolling on Instagram, party I didn't go to. Okay, like the picture, friend on a yacht, great. But genocide, okay, cool, not cool. Next post, how to layer your skincare. What the hell is that? Like, how am I even supposed to take in that there's a genocide going on? And to me, it would boggle my mind, and I realized I was becoming so insensitive and didn't care what was going on in the world, because it's hard to when you find news like that sandwiched in. So when I read the paper and I realized, oh my gosh, I can sit here, read it, process it, and then I can go about my day, versus having bad news intertwined with so many other things and so many other emotions that social media brings up that we can't even, that goes too fast for our brains to even keep up with. That's like what made me do it. I was like, oh, as silly as it sounds, this is revolutionary. And this is one of the oldest forms of media.
And this is one of the things that I love about like what we do with this pod, is that you really just, share, obviously you're going through a time like, mentally, and, you're in therapy, you felt like you're in it, but not. And you ended up thinking, what would little Kelsey like to do? And that's part of your inner child right there. And that's something that I definitely used to do too. We used to get the mail or the newspaper delivered every single morning. And I used to be reading it too in elementary, middle, and a little bit of high school. I say it like kind of dwindled, but I just love to hear that, because, you also made another good point about, seeing different types of content on your social media. And one of the biggest pieces of advice I got freshman year of college, somebody told me that they have another account on social media. One, their personal woo parties, social life, whatever. A separate account on Twitter, X, and Instagram just for strictly news. So that's the only content filter they see, right? So, I think that is one way, if you use, continue to use social media, for your news and how you get your updates. But I think this is a great tool in print media to just detach from our phones. We're on this 24/7 every single day, computers, laptops, what have you. And I just love the fact that, it started out with you tapping into your inner child, your inner self, and then it ended up affecting and positively impacting, thousands, literally millions of people. I mean, that's amazing, and that's just the beauty of tapping into your inner self and sharing it with other people.
Yeah,
and I just noticed something. There's newspapers on the table. Like, what a way to stay on brand. Like,
the whole time.
Yeah, you're like, yeah, I brought newspapers for y'all, but I'm just like, and I'm looking at the newspapers on the table. I'm like, oh wow, she's really about that. You know what I'm saying?
It's also so. I mean, it's allowed me to connect with so many people. You know, if I see an article that reminds me of a friend, I like mail it to them.
Yeah.
It also just allows you to slow down, like because
Yes.
that's a drug. Like that's the best way somebody described me. It's to phones. It's a drug. Like the way they have algorithms, everything. It's meant to keep you on there and keep you locked on. And also, this felt obvious to me once I started, but I realized I'm like a Democrat. I lean to the left. So all the content I see is to the left. And then when I see content that's on the right, I notice it's meant to enrage me. It's meant to make me have negative opinions about that side. Versus when I'm reading print, the first thing I do is like, okay, what's this source? Like the New York Times is known to lean a little left. The Financial Times is known to lean like a little more right, but left. So I know kind of the vibe of what I'm going to get, but I'm going to get conservative views. If I want more conservative view in a way that's not going to enrage me, I know what paper to go to. So it's allowed me to have more empathy, like I was saying, for people that have different political and social views than me. That when I was only getting my news on social media, I used to take personally when people didn't agree with me on social things. It's like, how could you not believe in this? But by reading print, I understand why people don't agree. That doesn't mean I agree with you, but I just have more empathy because I take more time to process what they're saying versus on social media, you see something that is meant to make you feel bad because that's how drugs work. Like literally. Yeah. So
what would you say some of your challenges of having such a large platform, you know, on TikTok, right? And you know, people tune in to see what you have to say on a daily, weekly basis. What are some of the challenges that you think that you have, you know, over time?
Consistency is one. Like I'm kind of in this phase in my content where I'm realizing I can no longer make it. Like I have to get a production team to make it. I think also this isn't, I don't know if this is so much a problem with me, but just in the time of social media we're in, people are literally, they want TV quality. They want, even if it's 40 seconds to a minute, they want it to look like TV quality.
Yeah.
Right.
So I think that's a challenge I'm overcoming is I have this audience. If this is something that I want to grow and have for the rest of my life, you have to invest in it way more financially than I expected. Like people do love that I put my camera down and I do that stuff, but ultimately it's going to get more views if it's higher quality. So I would say consistency, financially being a content creator is weird. Like that's something I wish people talked about more. You have good months and you have months where you're happy that good month was a good month because it's bleeding in to make this an okay month. So that's definitely consistency. Finances are interesting. In terms of being public facing, I always wanted a public facing career. Like I wanted to either, when I was little, I wanted to be a pop star, realized I couldn't sing. So I was like, okay, shifting. So I even think about like when I was, things I said I wanted to do when I was 3, I always wanted to be like in a public space. Right. So that part to me is kind of exciting rather than daunting. So that's, I kind of like that part. I'm like, oh, cool. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely with the quality piece, it's real. Like, I remember when me and JB was going to come out with this project, you know, the InnerChild Podcast. Number one thing is we used to always just talk about, like, quality. Like, quality on top of quality. And obviously, like, having it be as authentic as possible, right?
That part.
Yeah. Because you just want to put the best product out there. And especially if you're going to be investing your time. And time is, you know, the biggest expense you have as an individual. Like you want everything you do to be as pristine as you could possibly have it. So like I really appreciate that piece because that's real.
Yeah.
That's definitely real. Now I did want to like talk to you about the whole TikTok saga, right? With, you know, how TikTok is, you know, supposed to be shutting down soon. And being that's like how your following grew, right? You said you already had, I think I saw this, either you just said it on the podcast or I saw this when you were like on the Drew Barrymore show, which is a flex.
Yeah.
Yeah, which is a flex. That you already had like about 40K followers, you know, through some of the content that you were already doing, and you made the shift into, into this media literacy world. Like, what are some of the ways you planning to, I guess, like shift your business, your creativity, being that, you know, that platform, which is something that you use to massively grow? What are some of the things that I guess you're planning to do to kind of just, I guess keep it afloat, keep doing what you're doing, and continue growing the business?
Good question.
Yeah, no, it's a great question. It's something that's kept me up at night. So I kind of see it going 3 ways. Like the first is YouTube. I really want to create and planning higher quality content of almost like a digital series of me reading the paper versus just me putting my phone down and doing it on TikTok the way I do it. So that's the first thing. And Twitch too. I'm really interested in getting Twitch and live events and actually doing live newspaper readings because that is what a lot of like YouTube is pushing right now, and a lot of platforms, like people want to see things live. So that's the second thing. And also I would say actually curated in-person events. Like I have a community and I think I owe it to them to bring them together that love literacy, that want to learn in this way, to have live events for them. So I would say, you know, I kind of had a freak out moment. I listened to the whole entire Supreme Court thing yesterday. Like I was watching reality TV. It was really interesting arguments, and both sides had fantastic arguments of why TikTok should be banned and why it shouldn't. But I kind of did have a freak out moment. Like, oh my God, what am I going to do with my career? What am I going to do? But it's also like, this is just a challenge that you overcome, and you plan to overcome the challenge. And I don't know, like I believe in God, so, you know, like to me, I also see it as a reason of maybe you've been getting a little too comfortable. Like maybe you've been too comfortable in the way that you're producing content. It might be time for some adversity and like, okay, if you're going to go over to these other platforms, be intentional with what you're going to do. So that's how I'm trying to look at it. But I have had moments of freak out. Like I was getting my nails done, like, shit, like, what's going to happen? Like, but you know, you got to be intentional about what you do next. So that's how I see it working.
Yeah.
Yeah. New era.
Yeah, that for sure.
Yeah.
You also regularly appear on a podcast as well, right?
Yes. So I'm on a kids news show called First Stop News.
Yes.
It's a startup news show. It's geared towards kids 8 to 12, really for the classroom. That's where it's used the most, as teachers are able to show it to their kids, get a weekly roundup of news. So that's been, I mean, I've never like read from a teleprompter. That's a whole new experience I'm having. I produce the segments, so I write some of them, like put in the elements. I'm editing videos. So that feels like really like a what is it called? A earn as you. Do you guys know what it's called? Like a
learn as you earn.
Like learn as you earn. Yeah, I feel like that's my learn as you earn job, because I'm really learning. So it's interesting.
You like the, I guess, that space of, I guess, being on air. You talked about it already.
Yeah, I like it. I love cameras.
Hi, camera 3.
Hi, cameras. I love them. I think it's such a cool way to interact with your audience. I will say it's taught me a lot. Like reading from a teleprompter is a skill. I recently just did a live event, like my first ever live to broadcast event I hosted. It was for Maryland Public TV. They launched a media literacy center. And I hosted it with Frank Sesno. It's like a really big journalist, CNN, all this stuff. First time ever, like live to tape. Like we are on TV right now. And that reading from a teleprompter, one, I need glasses, but also I had never, if I didn't have that practice from First Stop News, I wouldn't know what to do. Like it's a skill. Also, whoever's running the prompter is a skill in itself, because you have to be able to
catch your voice,
also
pace you properly,
everything like that. So, I mean, I love it. And it's a skill to be on camera though. Like you really, to communicate information, to look at the camera, to not look awkward, to mess up and do it gracefully are skills that I'm learning. So I'm enjoying in the process. Like even Drew Barrymore, I was about to pee my pants. I was so scared. And that was like my first experience ever doing something like that. And I completely forgot there was a teleprompter. I was like, the teleprompter is there to help you.
You was killing it.
Yeah,
though.
Thank you.
You was for sure killing it.
Yeah, thank you.
The same energy you got here, you had it on the show.
Yeah, so that was that. I mean, I do want to do something like that eventually too, is be a Drew Barrymore, have my own show. So it was interesting to be a guest on that. Yeah. But she and many other TV show hosts are doing what I hope to do in the next 5 to 10 years.
JB, you ever read like off a teleprompter or anything?
I've been on like news before, but I never read off a teleprompter.
Yeah.
It was more like interview style, so I didn't have to necessarily like look at a teleprompter. So I think that's definitely different. I think I definitely would probably be uncomfortable because it's like I'm looking straight. Yeah. I would have to control. I feel like that's just different.
I was about to say that, because I'm a journalism major, so
you've read from a teleprompter.
Yeah, I did a lot of on air. I was like the sports anchor and so on and so forth, and it's very different, like having a set of words in front of your face, and like the camera's like right underneath it, and you're like trying to look at the teleprompter, but you're not trying to look at the teleprompter. You're trying to look at the camera, so it's just like. I remember seeing some episodes where like my eyes are just like wide open.
Yes.
But I'm not even looking at the camera. Like I could tell I'm looking above it. So like it turns into something where you have to really practice that skill to kind of like keep your eye low, like keep your body still, like read, with a proper pace. And you're right. Like the person who's handling the teleprompter, it could speed right through it. And you'd be like, all right, now back to you, Kelsey.
Like literally they speed, okay, I wasn't done.
Yeah.
Or, what is a skill on teleprompter is like not writing what you're fully saying. And that teleprompter person being able to keep up with you, like if you want to change something on the fly. So it's a skill. And I would say actually the hardest thing about being a content creator in that, having to watch back my content, cringiest thing ever. I hate having
and be like,
it makes me want to throw up.
Yeah.
It makes me want to throw up, but you have to do it because you have to realize how you can improve. So what I do is I watch it first without, like I turn my brightness all the way down on my computer because I can't see myself. Then I'll rewatch it and actually watch seeing myself, but I can't. It's cringy, but that's the way you have to improve. You have to realize, okay, where did I look weird? Where did I speed up too much? Where did it seem unnatural? That's my least favorite.
Yeah, me and JB, we pretty much edit like all of our videos together and stuff like that. So whenever we're playing back an episode or we're hearing the ums and the likes, or like the outro is like not the way we want it, it's always like, damn.
Yeah.
But then, we learn, right? Like I feel like I'm my biggest self-critic when it comes to this project and also like being on air. I mean, obviously I love people telling me, what their feedback is, but in the same breath, I'm seeing in real time some of the things that I'm doing that I could improve on or what was great about it. So I feel like me and JB get better as time goes, and it's a dope thing.
That's how it goes. That's how it goes.
Oh, so being that this is the InnerChild Podcast, you touched on, what you're doing now and, with media literacy was embracing your inner child. What are some other things that you feel like that you do on a regular basis to embrace your inner child? Like, what are some of those other specific items?
Great question. I feel like I think nature is like big for me and my inner child. I'm a big nature person. You're never going to catch me like camping. I'll glamp. I'd love to glamp. I'll do that. But I'm not going to be out here in the woods fighting bears or nothing like that. But that has been something that I have begun to prioritize as I started solo traveling too, because I love, like, I think for me to embrace my inner child is like these solo trips that I've been taking. And I do the same exact thing on every solo trip because it feeds the parts of little Kelsey that I love. So the first thing is I always take myself out for like omakase sushi. I have a love eating. Like that's to me, I actually want to back up. I think your inner child is like all your five senses. I think inner child's very simple and basic. It's like, what are the things that you love to touch when you were little? What are the things you love to smell? What are the things you love to taste? Like, I think sometimes people overcomplicate inner child. Of like, okay, you love to create. What did you like to see when you created? What did you like to feel? All of those things. So I think for me, I use that solo trip as like, that's my time to connect. So having a great dinner, and then I usually go listen to live music. Like love, that helps me connect as my inner child. Because I love to see people create. I love to listen. I love to watch. Like last night I saw live jazz. My eyes were just, I couldn't stop looking at the drummer and like how you're actually drumming your feet, everything happening at once. And then the next thing is I always connect to nature. Like I just love anything water. I love hiking. I mean, because it's so, like the world is so interesting. And I recently went on a 5 senses walk, which was an hour and 20 minutes you had to spend on a different 5 sense. So like you had to smell different things in the forest. You had to touch different things. You had to taste. There was a guide. He was giving us stuff you could taste. Like we weren't over here. But we were
random
like,
berries.
Right, no berries. But we were like eating rosemary and stuff. And to me, that was really a connection of when I'm in nature. That's what I try to do. Like I'm not just looking at it. I'm literally touching everything. Like people probably think I'm so crazy. I will like pick a leaf off the tree and smell it. It's like, that helps me connect to my inner child. And then little Kelsey's always loved clothes. So like shopping, thrifting, like talking to people in those stores where they source these things. So whatever that little Kelsey liked to do, I just try to make sure I find time to do it.
You said earlier in the cold opening that, you were planning to, take Miss Kelsey Russell back over to Atlanta.
Yes.
Right? So
excited.
With kind of just figuring out what's next in store for you, you've already talked about some of the things that you have in plan, have in motion. With that whole Atlanta experience, like, what are you looking forward to the most being able to head back home?
Yeah, I've had a complete shift in values. Like, I think peace, harmony, and family have really taken a center in my life. And I'm so excited to be around my family. Like, I'm so excited to be able to hang out with my brother more. That's been a relationship that has grown. I mean, my brother's 36 years old. So, no, I think he just turned 37. He's getting up. Yeah, he's just turned 37. So I'm excited to be able to go out to dinner with my brother and talk to him about what's going on in my life. I'm excited to my nephew. He's 10 months old. I'm excited to be able to be around him more. So I think Atlanta, for me, I'm just so excited to be nourished by my family and also build this relationship with them as adult Kelsey. You know, with my parents, you go hang out back home at your parents' house. It's still this. It feels like to me, I'm like trapped in being in high school with my parents, but when I'm there and I have my own place, I'll be able to build this other relationship with them. So family is something I'm just so excited for. Being able to travel to parts of the South that I don't really get to, that are so beautiful, especially with that nature piece. And then being a part of my family business. Like, I'm really excited to be a part of that in ways that I'm looking forward to explore. Yeah.
I like that.
What advice would you give young women who are aspiring to be content creators? What advice would you give them about, passion and purpose?
That's a really good question. You know, I think advice I would give to young women that want to be content creators is remember, like, your biggest asset is always up here. Like, what is inside your mind is your biggest asset. Even if you want to do beauty content, even if you want to do, like, lifestyle content, your biggest asset is the way you think about what you're going to do. I would also say advice to them is, like, honestly, do not compare yourself to other content creators. Like, do not do it. Do not follow people that you don't want to compare yourself to. Just simply don't compare yourself. Create your own lane. And I say their biggest asset is up here because if you want to make lifestyle content, think about what makes you unique and then combine that with that content. So I would say that, and try not to compare yourself in any way. I try not to I don't really go on TikTok as much because it like breeds comparison. Yeah. So that's what I would say is remember your biggest asset is what's inside your mind. Yeah.
That's good advice.
Yeah. For sure. So before we, get up out of here, it's been a great episode. Let us know what your social handles are for the people who haven't, been on game about some of the things that you're doing.
Yes. So my social media handles are at Kelsey Russ. It's not Kels Cress. It's Kelsey Russ. It's my middle name is Christina, so it's supposed to be parts of every name. But it's KELSCRUSS on Instagram, on LinkedIn, on TikTok. Hopefully, maybe not when this episode comes out. TikTok might not exist, but it'll always be that on all social medias is Kelsey Russ.
Yeah, we'll have all the tickers up, and it'll show up on the screen.
Lovely. Yeah. So you can find me there, and then by the time this comes out, probably YouTube.
Yeah, for sure. We like that.
Well, Kelsey, we really appreciate you taking the time to join this episode and with us. I just think it's very important in what you do. I think, like I said before, you definitely bring a value add to not just, us in our show, but you impact so many other people out there, making them, tap back into, just reading in general and reading physical print newspapers. And, there's so much value in that. And we really appreciate, for you coming on, but more so, all the work that you do. And we hope that you continue to have success in all your endeavors. So thank you for coming on.
Thank you guys for having me. I like this podcast.
Sure.
This is dope.
Yeah.
Definitely. So thank you all for tuning in to another episode of the InnerChild Podcast. Be sure to check us out on Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube at Official Inner Child. Thank you so much for listening. And always don't forget to embrace your inner child. Peace.